Welcome, everybody, to another interview in the series of amazing Rebel Crones. And as you know, throughout this series, I have chosen women that I feel exemplify a Rebel Crone. And what I mean by that is somebody that is a woman that has probably for their whole life, is this what I'm finding is that they're kind of born rebels. So they've chosen an alternative path through life. Maybe we could say not exactly chosen because this has been such an innate drive within them is this search, this quest of why am I different? What's going on in this world? Why am I here? What is my purpose? I mean, these are fundamental questions. But with a rebel crone, now a rebel crone is a woman that has reached a certain age. She's gone through the transitions in life. And instead of being a negative thing being a crone in ancient mystic times, the crone was the woman that was wearing her crown of power because she was mature. She'd come into her wisdom years. And this is something really, really profound and very much needed in the world as it is today. So it's my honor to do my little part in celebrating my fella rebel crones and celebrating what this looks like and demystifying it for younger women coming into this phase, saying you don't have to be afraid of getting older, demystifying it for men. What is this all about? Because I think there's a fear, an innate fear in men about the older woman in their power. So, nothing to be afraid of. This is a time of celebration. And if you're honored enough to know a rebel crone in your life, telling you what, you got to edge above everything else because we are full of so much wisdom and love and compassion. Welcome to Wisdom of the Modern Crone. My name is Elisa Chastain, creator of the Rebel Crone, and I'm your host. This podcast is dedicated to women that have defied the stereotype of aging. They are living life on their own terms with grace, wisdom, and power. I consider these modern crones to be the living keepers of wisdom. So it's my great honor today to introduce my guest, Linda. Now, Linda, is it Seagal or Seagal? Let me get it pronounced correctly.
It's Linda Sue Siegel. I like to go by Linda Sue because my
We're going to
daddy
go.
had to put that Sue in there.
I love it. I love it. So, Linda Sue is my honored guest today, and we're going to explore what her magic is and a little bit of her journey coming through as a younger woman and into her crone years. So, welcome, Linda Sue. I'm so happy to have you with me today.
Oh, thank you. It's such an honor. Thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome. So let's get started. My first question, I think this is the icebreaker right here, is when did you first know that you were a rebel?
Um, well, I think went in stages. I think I had about three defining moments. The I was adopted as a child, so I came in totally different. And my adoptive father was in the delivery room, and he was a pediatric nurse at the time. And he said that when I came out, that of course they spanked back then on the little rear end, he said I was not going to cry. I just stuck my thumb in my mouth. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, okay. And then the real defining moment was in my 20s when I had my third child. I got extremely ill afterwards, and I knew that if I didn't do something with all the pharmaceuticals that I was on and what everybody was telling me I had to do, I was going to die. And I'd had a little baby. She was about 4 months old. And one day, just this spark within me, don't ask me how these things work, but something inside of me just rose up and said, get off all those 9 medications now. And I'm like, okay. So I told my husband at the time, I go, I'm getting off of this stuff. I am not going to live on 80 milligrams of prednisone and I mean, just all kinds of stuff that was just messing me up. I said, I am not going to take it. He goes, well, you'll die, in the middle of the night. And I go, well, then I guess you're going to be a widower. And I'm going to orphan some children. I go, I was an orphan. What's the big deal? I mean, that sounds really hardcore, but that's how strong it was. And I woke up able to breathe, and I looked at him and I said, I'm alive. And I hardly had any symptoms going forward from that. I still had some episodes, but not to the degree. And that was a very defining moment that I had a brain and I had a body and I had a will.
I
And
was going to say that, Linda. So I was going to say that really sounds to me like such a pivotal thing is the fear of death drives so much of us. And we were talking a little bit about this before we started. The fear of death and our immortality, our sovereignty, where our
yes,
real power is if you aren't aware that you're not connected to your power source. And it sounds like you tapped right into that. And a lot of times it comes with a life-threatening thing, right? And that
oh
you
yeah,
overcome that. It's that's the challenge, the wake-up call.
yeah, it's always the thing that I've learned is the dark is always around you, even during the daylight. I mean, think about that. We're this incredible battery, and we're shining and we have this aura, this golden light around us. We're shining. Um, and why would in order for us to see those things, there has to be some sort of contrast.
It is contrast. And in 3D, we're living in 3D. Granted, we're moving into other dimensional ways of being that are not another place. They're just, it's around us. It's a move within the same space, a higher vibration. But within this construct, we call it that, it is a construct of duality and polarity. That's,
Absolutely.
that's the game. You
That's
can't not
the
play
game.
that game. Yeah, that's how
It
it's
is.
designed.
And then there's layers, I didn't, I mean, I just kind of got like an overview. And then over the years, it's like a spoke of a wheel, there's that overview in there. There's something higher than myself. And I started peeling away, and each spoke had, different areas of who I was. And they would just start unfolding for me to see. And it was very, very, it was like trudging through mud. It was like just such a great work of insecurity, of not knowing, but yet I still had that overview in there. And it's like, gosh, I can and I will. So that was the second defining moment. And then um, the real major, well, there was actually four, but this one was I just got to a point where I just needed to know my purpose. And all of a sudden, I started feeling this power going in my heart and in my solar plexus. I didn't know a thing about chakras. I didn't know a thing about really the body. Okay. And I was at this job that I didn't really like, and yet it was a cool job. And so I would fall asleep on the phone. And one day, I mean, at this time, I had like, already had 5 children, putting a husband through school and trying to support my family. And I'd get up early in the morning, like 3 or 4 in the morning, and drive to my job, take phone calls. And I found myself falling asleep on the phone. And so there was one time, and my friends around me were like, wake up, come on, the supervisor is going to see you. Well, there was one time where I woke up, and I woke up saying a prayer instead of saying, my customer exiting and saying, thank you for your order. I said, in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. And my girlfriend heard me, and she goes, oh, this is ridiculous. You're going to have to do something. And so then over a period of a couple weeks, I just the thing I'm trying to portray is that that energy was just moving into my heart, however way I needed to say it through my, you know, go if you want to call it dissociating, going to sleep, whatever, and still doing a job. My mind was working and my heart was working. And one day I just looked off into the distance at someone else that was taking a phone call, and I saw this big blue book. And I mean, that blue book looked like it was like the size of a house. And I was infatuated. So everything was being amplified for me and like making me see and go over. And so I went over there and I was just, I guess, just a real pest. I just said, "What are you studying? What are you studying?" And she gets off. She was kind of aggravated with me and she goes, "Massage therapy." And I go, "This is exactly what I did." I go, "That's what I'm going to do." And she just looked at me, and for the next few days, I kept bugging her for the information. And that was in the 90s, early 90s. So that guided me into body work. And then the next thing I knew, a lot of good things happened financially and all that kind of stuff. But the fourth thing that made me realize that there was far more to this journey than I could realize is when I just picked up. I'm leaving a whole lot of things behind, but I picked up and took a major risk and moved from Arizona to Texas, and on a leap of faith. And that's when I knew, oh, this is absolutely insane. This is insane. And so that's when the super great work began, working through even more layers. So those are my four really defining moments.
Well, they're beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. It's something I'm sure real personal, yet it's something what you touch on is really a universal, I say a universal principles, I feel, of how spirit works with us and the awakening process.
Yeah.
And it comes in layers, and it never stops coming in layers. Even it doesn't, it's not at a certain age or that, the whole lie that at a certain age it just stops and you start going downhill. No, it's just that's not true at all. I feel like these layers peel away, but there's a certain point that you get to. Maybe this is what will go next, where that journey has a foundational shift with it. There's a certain age for women where that journey just shifts into something else. And for me, this was after menopause, which I hate using that word, but we're going to say the upgrade. But what we're talking about is the menopause age.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, there was just such fundamental changes that are fueled because we are spiritual beings incarnate in a physical body. So we have to deal with the physicality. That's part of the joy and challenge, right, of being on this planet is maneuvering through these bodies and their whole design and their minds and all of that. And so I feel like there's something fundamentally that shifts physiologically that sets us up for a whole different way of being. And that I would say is the hormonal changes. No longer are we dictated by all the strong estrogen dominated, drives, which is going to be procreation. So that translates down to how sexy I am for guys and how appealing I am and how I can get safety and a guy will protect me. And, these are like raw, fundamental things. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's part of the body stuff, the physical thing. We start shifting out of this, like, oh, I need to take care of other people. I think, what about taking care of me?
Yeah, it does become very radical self-love.
Very radical. I mean, this is just a major shift going into this. Without going more into that part. So, Linda Sue, when you were coming up to the aging thing, what was your frame of mind about aging? Because there's a certain point when we start to see, the wrinkles, the roadmap starts to appear, the skin
Yeah.
starts sagging. I mean, one day I swear to God, I woke up overnight and I had subcutaneous fat over my entire body. And I was just like, well, where'd that come from?
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, there was just things that just happened.
Hmm.
And so what was the experience like for you as you start to see these things? Were you in a good place with it? What things did you have to overcome?
Well, I really started seeing it at a young age because I really saw how, youth was being so emphasized. When I was in my 20s, I mean, that was like, MTV, the disco scene, and, such a focus on youth, but yet I didn't have, I just didn't, I just didn't feel whole and well inside of me. And so I just thought it was, just, um, it's how you look. Like Billy Crystal said it best. He said, it's not the way it is, the way you look. Okay. That was the attitude that I felt growing up well, not growing up, but my 20s and the 80s. And so I mean, I'd look in the mirror all the time and it's like, oh no, oh no. And when I was driving down the road, I'd look at the mirror and see, oh, gee, I'm starting to see something here. And it would freak me out, to be quite honest with you. It freaked me out. And then as I started having children, it still freaked me out. And I thought, oh, well, I guess I'm getting old. And I started with a mindset like I was getting old. And then something happened. And that's when I started getting sick. And it was like I had to snap out of it. So um, when I started really embracing getting older and accepting the fact that I was getting older was right after menopause. All my children had flew the nest. It was very radical how they did it. It left me in an empty nest. And I had to just flat out look at it, just look at myself. And I was going through menopause. I was very, very fortunate. I don't really like using that word either, but I was very, very fortunate when I would experience the lightning bolts, moving with the lightning. I became struck. So, when I went through the lightning strikes,
Which I hot flashes, right? Are
I
we
had a
talking
lot
about
of
hot
questions,
flashes?
and I started I just started exploring everything in that wheel. I mean, I went on steroids. So um, it gave me an opportunity to really start looking within. I only had a few lightning strikes. I didn't have a lot. I Early on, I started embracing nutrition. Um, Not to the point of really where I could have probably just slid through there without even a hot flash, without any kind of sweating. Um, but I was in a good enough spot where my body just said, no, you don't really have to go through a whole lot of this. So I didn't experience it in a super radical way like a lot of women that I observed. And I feel like it's because I did a lot of work early on without knowing that I was doing that work, that now it was just like peeling away some of those other little layers. And I think menopause maybe lasted, those lightning strikes lasted probably no longer than 6 months. And I could probably count on my two hands, how many I had. Now they were intense. They were extreme intense. But I'm an intense person. It just had to happen that way. And I became okay with it. And that's when I started seeing a little bit more gray hair. Um, I started looking at that and going, oh my gosh, those hairs kind of shimmer in the sun. I started getting into gardening. And I found that if I was in the garden and barefooted, I just did all this natural. I think we have an innate way that if we listen to ourselves, we'll know how to maneuver ourselves where we feel better. At that same time that I was starting to learn how to garden, a person came into my life that exposed me to shamanism. I had a soul retrieval, and at a deeper level, two pieces of my soul came in. Um, a lot of trauma started happening, and I was able to walk through that. So my menopause years, with those lightning strikes, when each and every one of those things came, it came with something at a very, very deep level that's very hard to explain. So menopause was a really, really good thing for me. Um, I was very, very thankful when I was going through those lightning strikes. They just felt like, oh, I mean, they were so breathtaking. And so I would just tell myself, it's doing life here. It's not really about time. It's about how many times your breath is taken away. And so, yeah, I hope that answered
I,
your question. But
yeah, no, I think.
it launched me into some other things. It was a launch.
Well, it
Uh,
sounds like of just not going into a fear place. And this is what my concern is, and what we were talking about before we started recording this is the stigma around it. And so, young ladies, like when we go into something fearing it, right? And
yeah,
what the things we're afraid of, oh, I'm going to get fat now, and I'm going to get all gray and saggy, and I'm going to be
yeah,
marginalized, and I'm going to be bleh, all this stuff. Well, we all know what fear does, drives that train
yeah,
right into that station, and
yeah.
that's we're just what we're saying here, ladies, is that this is not, you don't have to go to that station. There is another station there. There's another pull point for you. And every story that you share, Linda, I say like the magic of all your stories is that you had a new North Star. There was something you weren't real sure, but you had something that you grounded in above yourself that guided you through all that. Now, when we get on the other side of all the big changes, that North Star, we get that I feel like it descends upon us, and me and my North
Right.
Star become more one. But coming up to it, it's like, oh, it's up there, it's a little far away, but I'm moving towards, I'm learning to trust my intuition, and
Right.
that's like a key thing we'll need to go into, because I feel like that's when the pivotal changes,
Yeah.
right?
And
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you're bringing that up and it's like really coming up because, um, like, in around the year, 1997, I woke up with this thing in my head saying it's all about patterns. It's pattern recognition. Out of the blue, I was making a quilt. It's called a cathedral window quilt, where it's all sacred geometry. It's the oldest quilt in the world, that when I read about it years ago, that the pagans would do, because when, I guess, whoever did stained glass, they didn't have the stained glass, and so they were great inventors, creators, to emulate a stained glass, and it looks like a stained glass window is what it does, and it's all based on sacred geometry and folds. And so, I woke up one day, it's like all about, I just went on this thing, oh, it's all about pattern recognition. Well, okay, now fast forward me past, the lightning strikes, and going into my pro-aging. See, I don't like to use the word aging. Aging has a connotation here. I'm not having
It
that.
sure does. It sure
It
does.
does.
Yes.
I'm a pro-ager. Everything is in a cycle, and it's positive. And it's also got negativity. And we have a choice to look however way we want to navigate that. So for me, I'm a pro-ager, in this eon, in this age. I'm a pro-ager. So going into my pro-aging time, I look back and I'm starting to see all these patterns. That's the wonderful thing about going into cronehood, is that you can reflect and you can see all these little patterns, and like, holy moly, look at that. And as we do that reflection, and a lot of times we don't even have to do the reflection, it just comes. There's a, not to say that I'm all that. I'm just trying to purvey, just a little bit of what's happened with me, is like discernment. Oh my goodness. That's why sometimes we're considered scary, is because we see things. We become seers, and we feel things, and our sensory, everything around us, it just becomes like real to us. The unseen becomes real. And then we realize that, oh my goodness, there's more space around here than there is substance. It is about the unseen. It's like, okay, well, let's just make peace with that, and allow it to move you through in a flow. And I feel like it's it's about the only way I've learned how to survive, because otherwise I would be in a control mode. And when you control things, we know what control does. Not to say that you don't have self-control, but I like the word self-regulating. We can self-regulate so much,
Yeah.
where we can stay calm and and yet with a, a force to be reckoned with. I'm just looking at it for my own self, and know that I don't have to go out there and get her done. Okay, all right, that's more of a that's the masculine side that I did very well. Free lightning strikes. Okay, I knew how to get it. I still know how to get it done, but I know how to do it in a much easier way. It's like with the sweep of the eyes, and the desire in the heart, the knowingness of the gut, and then let my activated alarm system, my Truman brain model, go out there and get it done and bring it to me. So that way so last year was all about manifestation. I manifested some really cool things. There's still a whole lot more I want to do. Um, I think we create magic,
Yeah.
for lack
I
of a
think
better
that's
word.
one of the
And,
magics of getting over.
and this is
Go ahead.
also alchemy. What I'm explaining to is alchemy, because a true alchemist every single day is learning something, and it just comes to you. You just and then the transmutation process that happens, and yeah, it just becomes an alchemy walk with nature, and with knowing that you're part of this incredible scheme in a three-dimensional reality, that you're very fortunate to have this vehicle to house this incredible spirit that really can't stay in there. It's all around us. And I know that might sound a little woo-woo, but um, anyway, I think true alchemy is just continual learning, staying open, having some uh, being receptive, and the discernment powers, however that happens between the left brain and the right brain, and just getting into knowingness,
Oh,
just
I hear you with that. I hear you. I
just
think what you're, go ahead.
dispelling belief, just totally not believing in anything. I mean, that's part of the layer of the onion. It's like it can be very scary if you're in the matrix and really entrenched with it. For example, watching the news or taking your instruction from traditional institutions. And I'm not anti-institution. It served me well for a long time. But when you get into this age, what gets really scary is that you start critically thinking.
Oh, God forbid. Are you, little lady, you going to actually start thinking for yourself?
Oh
Oh
yeah.
my God. Yeah, that it's, there's like so many incredible points that you touched on. I appreciate that riff you just did, because it was a really powerful riff. And the whole thing of alchemy, and alchemy, I feel like, is like the power of who we are, is a word we could put on true power. And true power, like for me, as I started coming into my power years and my, the starting to unleash and understand how to work that, it was a great comfort to me to come to the realization that this bandwidth that we live in through our senses, our basic senses, not our clairvoyant, our clair senses, but our basic senses, is just this small window, and the real
Yeah.
game is being played out there, which is vastly bigger than this little experience right here. And it's all around us, but it's so much more. Instead of being a scary thing for me, it was just an exciting thing. It's like, thank God it's not just this. So if it's just this, I wanted out of this a long time ago, because this little experience here made no sense. It was just crazy and it was difficult. So the more I peeled that back, it's been a place of comfort for me. And it sounds like for you too, as we wake up to the truth of who we are and our real powers as a creative being. It's just like, oh my gosh, it's exciting. Like this is the real journey. And I feel like some women we come to it in different stages, but when we go through that change on the other side, man, I'm telling you what, there is
Oh,
like this power that's
it's
unleashed.
so awesome.
Yeah.
It's
And it,
so awesome, but and in order to get there, I mean, there's such entropic forces, you know, and when you kind of see that that's the way it is, they get out of the way. So it's like the immune system. It's just like the immune system. The first step in immunity is the recognition process. Being able to recognize. That's the number one thing. It's just being able to recognize, oh yeah, this is all around me. Don't give it any power. It's like, okay, it's around me, you know. I'm
we've
good with
all
that.
heard that story, right? Where the process of waking up is like unto walking down the road and there's a big hole in the road. And then you go through life and you just boom, you fall in the hole and you're like, oh my God, why is this so suck? Why is it so hard? And then also you wake up to the fact there's a big hole in the road. It's like, oh, I fall into that. And then the next phase is like, okay, I'm just gonna walk around that. And then the final phase is I'm just taking a different road, you know? So that's, I think that's what happens when we get older is we just realize, it doesn't have to be hard. I kept falling into that. Now I recognized it. I chose not to go there. Not choosing, I'm just choosing a completely different route where that doesn't exist anymore. It means the,
Yeah, and it's like the road less traveled. You
yeah.
forge your own, you forge your own way, and that is like one of the most important steps in embracing the wholeness of who you are is the I can and I will. For example, when a baby is born, the birthing process here we know is a little bit of on a challenging trajectory. And instead of allowing the baby to go on the body, mother's tummy and crawl to the breast, one of the first things they do is basically clamp the cord and cut the cord, then put the baby. So the baby never really gets that stomach action on the mother to
Mm.
say, I can, I will. That's a very fundamental thing to so and most of us didn't get that. So somewhere in life, if we want to develop that I can and I will, we have to go through some of these really, really challenging parts to say, I can, I will, and 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 climb that mountain. And it is going to be a path that has some resistance. I mean, think about the newborn babies taking a breath in, just like at the lights and everything. And it's like, what's going on? They have to use their innate, what it is within them to say, I can, I will, I'm hungry, or whatever it is to get there. And we have to go through that same, or we can go through that same process to embrace that same thing where that really gets us on that path of, this is my journey, and it becomes an unfolding process and not a scary process to forge your way through that forest.
And it's not always easy. I'm going to snap, snap, snap on that one because I feel like this is so true. I mean, it's the same journey all through life and all stages. And I've even heard, Linda Sue, where it's like it starts with going through the birth canal. Like that's the first. Now, I'm not saying that having natural births is sometimes you have to have a C-section for the mother's life and
Right.
the baby's life. But I think
Yeah.
sometimes they do it way too easy in our medical profession now because that's like I've heard that that's like the first challenge that baby has, the first struggle that they overcome, and then the struggle. I never heard about that, but just the crawling up and the bonding, skin to naked skin mother. And it's almost like metaphorically like moving up from the womb up to the heart chakra and then up to like the voice. I mean, you're moving up with it. And I think that's beautiful, but that's just all through life. I mean, there's not an easy way through this realm. If somebody's skating through this realm, well, maybe they opted to come in and have a vacation life. Well, good for them. That means they probably had a lot of other really challenging ones and they just need to vacate and vacation this time. No judges there. But for a lot of us, we're in the trenches with it. And
Yes.
especially when I'm talking like our generation, and earlier that it was we were more pioneers and we had a lot of terrain to go through. We didn't have the internet. We couldn't just find something like, oh, what is shamanism? What is I feel like I need to heal this or that. And we had access. No, we didn't. We didn't have, it was just the world around us, and connections
Right.
we made, so we
Yeah.
forged a ground that was very difficult. I want to tell the young people what your elders did for you to create the world that it is today. There's mixed up stuff, but you have access to light in a way that we did not have access to it
We
when we were
really
younger.
didn't.
We did not have access the way that it's now, and that's because the elders that came in as light workers in this plant, whether they are conscious of it or not, because they did their job, that young people now have an easier chance to wake up. There's a path that's been sown. I mean, I'm not saying
Right.
it's easier. I'm just saying it's different and it's easier in a sense that they didn't have to go in with like the brute, spiritual force of moving through stuff. So I have to say that's why we honor our elders, because they paved paths that we then are privy to, enjoying and then taking further. The next generation is going to take this further, right, Linda Sue? They're going to take it further than we were ever able to because they're working off of our platform, so
Right. And especially if we, you know, where I really have benefited from institution was being able to see some contrast, getting on the other side, so to speak, and um, seeing what institution, taught me, programmed me. Um, and I think I just lost my thought on that. But um, okay, I got into counseling, so I was able to see, some of my behavioral patterns and what they possibly represented. And so, that inner work, um, is probably a starting place for a lot of us. And I think that institution has a really great place to get us launched in that way. Religion, I looked at it as I never bought into it from the time I was little. I was raised as a Mormon, okay, very very staunch in a military family, and so it was very very rigid, and yet there was a lot of leeway. But I was able to forge through these institutions to say, hey, I just don't want to believe that way. Um, and experience the abandonment, the ostracization of being able to forge my own way. Now, did that feel good when I was going through it? Absolutely not. I felt abandoned, alone. I didn't have anybody to turn to. I was on my own. I was right there in my head. And as I look back, I'm like, man, that was an experience of teaching me. The number one lesson I learned through that is I'm not afraid to die. I'm not afraid. Just if I had to say what I needed to say for whatever reason, my discernment powers, I am not afraid to speak or to feel or to project what I need to project, um, for what I see at that time as truth that needs to be unfolded. um, all those institutions have really helped me with that. So I really do want to go back and make this really clear. I'm not anti-institution. I think it's a launching pad. Um, and for those that didn't
Well,
get
especially our generation, right? And especially what we're talking about is because we came up in the times of, I was born in the early 60s, so I really wasn't a child of the hippies and all that stuff going on. I was more a 70s girl. That's when I really came into my teenage years and stuff.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
so I didn't have but we're coming off the 50s, coming off the time of trusting things. And then there's the wrench that's thrown in the 60s. And whether you want to say that's all programming, psyop, or however it's just what we went through, doesn't matter. But I think what you're talking about is one of the wisdom pieces that we get as we get older is we don't judge those things. We know that everybody's on their path. It's all sacred. If they want to really go into some kind of real religious, structure that's got a paradigm. You think of all these structures, these institutions, it's a paradigm. And when you decide to believe in enjoying it, then you abide by these things. And at some point you start to, hopefully, maybe not, but if you're growing, truly growing, you bump up against the borders and it's like, this is constricting. I need a bigger one, so you find the different one. But they're all paradigms with that provide something, but they also have limitations. I think that that's one for me is like just getting off this whole thing and judging things and judging people. And it's all
Absolutely.
it's blessed where you are, and I love you where you are. I may not want to be around you, we may not have things in
Right.
common, but it doesn't mean I don't love you and respect your
Right.
choices. It's not bad, and if you
We've
still
learned
choose,
our boundaries.
yeah,
We've learned our boundaries.
exactly. And oh my gosh, and I can't rescue you from you. That's
Yeah.
like
You
another
do
big.
you better than I can do you, and this is your process. My children have been my greatest teachers, and my oldest living child is 45, and she's totally in a different direction. I mean, all my children have gone in. It's like, okay, all right, um, this is your path, and I found where my role is, if you want to call it a role, or my beingness is you know I know what my boundaries are. I know what I'm going to accept and not accept as far as what's coming in my space. I've learned my moral code. You know, I've learned my moral codes. And that's very, very important to learn that. And I learned that through my children. Don't do anything illegal, immoral, or unsafe. Now, illegal can be a little iffy in there. Okay. I understand, all that kind of stuff. I want to preference that. Um, but you cross any of those moral codes, I'm going to have to look at it. I can love you from afar. Um, I can accept where you're at. If you're doing something unsafe, I might have to say something. You're doing something immoral, I'm definitely going to have to say something because that's what a crone does. And or anyone that has a moral conscience would do, if you do anything harmful to another. So I think we can speak with a voice of wisdom where maybe it can be listened to. Um, so yeah, I'm sorry I had to
And I think
interrupt you.
that no, Linda, I think what we're saying is like it's so important because one of the things when you really come into your true wisdom years, this is a really important part of it because not everybody getting old becomes a wise one. Not every old woman becomes a crone. In my book, how I define crone, is the crowning glory. It's a certain transition that we make. Well, here, let me just explain the point of this. In that transition is that we understand how to move through working with other people, working with ourselves, speaking when needs to be spoken, and then also not speaking, knowing when not to speak. But
Right,
there's a grace about a crone. Now there's a stridency that some women will carry coming into their latter years, and where they're stuck in the initial phases where we get pissed off, we get angry and pissed off because we've been giving our life substance, taking care of everybody else. We don't feel appreciated. We just felt trodden on. No one listens to us. And yet we're the ones that have just not pursued taking care of ourselves. This is
right.
a kind of a typical thing, some variation therein. But we can come into our crone years feeling bitter, feeling like, I'm sick of taking care
Oh,
of
yeah.
people. I'm not going to then to you. I'm not taking care of you anymore. I don't want to have sex with you anymore because, quite frankly, maybe I didn't enjoy it that much and it hasn't been that rewarding. So screw that. And I don't want this and I don't want it. And we get like super strident on this stuff. But that's like a hump to get over. You get over this strong, okay, get upset, but it's not being upset about everybody else. It's like make the changes within you. And then we come out on the other side with incredible compassion and grace. So we can, if our
Exactly.
children or whatever, we know like when to say something, when to shut up, when to be the example, the quiet example, when not to go quietly. And then if we have to say something, we always honor their autonomy, right? Their sovereignty and their free will.
Yes.
But
And
you
know
just
full
got to say it.
yeah, and that um know full well that it may not be received, and that's okay. And that's okay. You don't have to feel any shame or guilt. I mean, to me, that's just, I mean, you only need enough shame not to walk into the grocery store stark naked. That's the amount of shame we need. Okay. So no shame, no guilt, knowing that,
Unless, of course, it's really needed. And I can't say in every circumstance that wouldn't be the right thing. Who knows? Maybe there's a circumstance. Ain't gonna be on my docket to be doing, but that's, all
yeah.
the power to whoever.
Oh,
No, I
exactly.
hear you. It's just like that's just a funny example, but I hear you with that is, I think it's like so important is that level of discernment,
Yeah,
and one of my pivotal things, one of my prime um uh precepts in life is right action for right action's sake. And I think with some
exactly.
Crohn's, we understand what right action is and we just do it or we don't do whatever it is. The action may be doing, not doing, saying, not saying, but we do it for the sake of just that's the right thing. As much as I want to give that person a piece of my mind, or I think you know, my
Yeah.
higher self says zip it, I zip it.
Yeah. And, a lot of people think that when you're not, engaging or you go quiet on there, you're acquiescing.
Acquiescing, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that can probably play a major part, like in legal terms and stuff like that. However, when it comes to the crone or the wisdom that we possibly are embracing and learning as we even pro-age, um, it's acquiescing has its place. Standing back. I mean, there's nothing more beautiful to me. It's like the other day, I was hanging out with, I think she's 50, and I go, oh, you're just a youngster. And really standing back and watching how she's operating, and I go, man, I love the movement that you're going through, and you know validating them. It's just so important. We don't have to be in that limelight. We can acquiesce, stand back, and receive just through watching, someone unfold on their journey. And that's what I'm doing with not just my children, but some other children, and just letting them, when I need to say something, just like, man, you really have an incredible journey. I just giving them a lot of positive in that direction, that even there's no mistakes. There's absolutely no mistakes. It's just learning lessons and to move forward. And anyway, yeah, I went on a
No, I think
tangent.
that's true. I think what you're talking about, the phrase that comes to mind for me is holding space. Though we understand what holding space is, and it's not some new agey weird thing. It's a very real thing. It's like we understand energy. We understand the power of energy. Our energy is we've come into a place of
Absolutely.
understanding control, and we can hold the space that's this loving space. Here it is. And what does grandma do? This giant, beautiful, swishy, lovey hug, hug
Mm.
of love. And she doesn't have to be there to actually hug you, but it's just this vibrational hug. I'm here. I'm holding this space. If you want to leave this space and go off and do whatever, fine. But I'm here. I'm holding this for you. Whenever you come home, whenever you want to, I'm here for you to love you and to be an accurate mirror back to you. I'm going to be honest in love and appreciation. But I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you like
Yeah,
it is.
I'm going to
Damn,
tell
damn, I'm
you,
going to tell you.
you're going to know who I am.
Yeah.
That's important. You're going to know who I am as a proteolarian of the society and a matriarch of my world and of everything around me. All matriarchy is no one goes without. That's all matriarchy is, really. I mean, there's a lot more detail to that. There's a sacred matriarchs and all that, and whatever. But just to make it real simple, no one goes without. No one goes without. And
Wow.
we just have such a fun role, because here's the other part that I love about being a crone. I have okay. as we allow a lot of our energy that we've gathered through those lightning strikes and all that wisdom that's just brewing within us, and we're like, we're in that flow. It's just out there. It's just oozing all around us everywhere. And people are like, what's going on with that one? Okay. Which is okay. That's the one lesson I've learned is don't worry about what other people think. I mean, it's just like it's what you think that really matters. That
Oh,
as we
it's a
go through that,
huge one.
wise crones seek out other wise crones and hold space with them because anciently, when we went through this lightning strike thing, we were in a society where women came together and did that together. We were separated out of society so we could have our transitions. There is no transition in this in there isn't.
There's no sacred ceremony around any
Isn't.
transition in life about coming getting your menses for the first time, the transition into becoming a mom. And
Yeah,
there's like all these transitions are men and women, but there's no elders holding that sacred space. And to me, that
yeah,
is like a diabolical thing of the destroying of the village and the family and the matrix. Because with that gone, pushing elders aside, let's be really clear about this. Pushing
uh,
elders aside goes against nature, and nobody benefits from that.
oh,
That is
oh,
antithesis of life in nature because
I got
the
goosebumps.
elders, this is a pivotal role, and that's what I want to rally my sisters, my crone sisters, to like, all right, we're not going to be put aside. I have this platform here, the Rebel Crones, and we're going to step up and we're going to talk and we're going to share it, we're going to demystify it and show the world the power that's here and that we are needed. It's exact
Yeah, we're
how
creators.
opposite the world says. Like, what a shock.
Yeah.
What a shock. We are the
Wow.
creative, you
Yeah,
know.
that was a powerful riff, man. You just put goose god bumps all over my body. I mean, all over. This is so fundamental for moving forward into a peaceful society with still contrast, but a peaceful society where we can do some soul searching, soul growth, discover who we are, and move into those realms that we were meant to move into with love, grace, and ease. Yeah, that's really powerful what you just went through it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. It's just letting it come through, girl. Letting it come through,
That's the
this
only
has
way I
been
know how to do life, really. Just let
yeah.
it come through.
And this is the magic of us talking, like I don't sit there and just say that out loud. It came through in context because we created a field. We're holding space for each other in love and respect as sisters, boom, and understanding and seeing our beauty and our power and our
Yeah.
grace. We hold space, and this is what then can come through us, through our
Yeah.
physical beings from our higher selves. And this is what a crone can do in a profound way is channel
Yeah.
that stuff in, I say channel
Yes.
that shit in,
And
bring it in.
what and what's inside is outside. As we start embracing that, going back to our earlier part of the conversation about the wrinkles and the sags, you don't see that on your body. That inner beauty starts to radiate. So here's the other part of my story. So now when I look in the mirror, it used to be, I'd spend quite a bit of time, doing my face. I'm lucky if I do 5 minutes on my face. I'm lucky if I even comb my hair. I mean, okay, I gave myself a name. Here's another thing that I did. I decided, in this society, labels kind of, roles. If you were to describe yourself, who are you? And I thought, you know what? I've been in the beauty business. I've risen to the top and I've gone to the dirt. I go, I'm barefoot. Nails are always dirty. I'm proud of this, but I can clean up well. So I gave myself a name, and I go by the garden goddess because I just decided that I am a goddess. Now that's not narcissistic. I don't feel like it is.
No.
finding who I am. And if we've gotten into all this goddess worship, it's like, well, I don't think I need to worship another goddess. What I need to do for myself is appreciate the God within me, the goddess within me. That's what I mean by that.
Mhm.
Um, and so I thought, I spend most of my day in the sun. I'm not afraid of the sun, in the garden, trying to figure out how to garden in a drought when there's water restrictions, even in the country. And, um, and just be grounded. And so I thought, I really feel like I'm a garden goddess.
Oh my God, I love that. And you know what? I think this is a perfect place to wrap it up. It feels like we've created this beautiful, brought all this beautiful substance in, like this beautiful substance of wisdom. And it comes down to is just, the crown that the crone puts on. Unfortunately, I don't have other crone sisters there to put it on me, which I think is something I want to talk to you about afterwards. I envision a beautiful retreat, for us where we do ceremony with that, but
Oh,
we have to
yes.
put the stinking crown on ourselves. I claim the goddess within me. It's not my ego doing this. It's like I claim that because I am the expression of a beautiful immortal, an immortal and
Yes.
spectacular as
Radical
you
self-love.
are, as they are, as everyone, and I see that in me, so I can see that in other people, you know. And it's for us to claim. Like I claim my wisdom.
Yeah.
I am a wisdom holder and a
Yeah.
wisdom share. Dang it, and
Yeah.
I have to claim that for myself, unfortunately.
Absolutely. You have to stand to the plate for yourself first
Yeah.
and feel it, you know it. It's real to you. This is what's real to you. This is authentic. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and there's also a humbleness with it. It's like I don't know everything, but I'm in a good place. I haven't done very many videos this year so far with the Rebel Crone because I'm in another huge growth spurt.
Yeah.
Things have been like, and I finally feel like I'm landing at my feet back on the ground, centered in this new place of being. So it doesn't stop, but it's just I feel like we've overcome certain fundamental foundational things, and we're in a place where we've got the pinnacles in our own personal temple, the pillars already established so that we can now traverse this next dynamic range of growth as mature women. You don't stop growing, ladies, young ladies. You don't stop growing. All my girlfriends that are in their 70s above, they're like, it just gets better. And I'm like, I thought hitting
Oh, yeah.
60, it's like now it's that. It's like, no, it just keeps growing and changing. So, yeah, and it's
And
easier.
the younger you get inside, the more childlike you get. You know, I told somebody the other day, and I've said this for years, because I do have some funny little humor. And I go, if somebody called me immature, I'm going to take it. I go, thank you.
I know I feel like such a kid. And then I walk in front of the mirror sometimes. I feel eternal and young and all that. And I gotta say, sometimes I walk in front of the mirror and I'm like, whoa, whoa, that was an old lady looking back at me. I make that I embrace my age, but I also make sure my lighting is good in the studio, just so that, I want to put my best face forward. I'm at peace with the growing old thing, but it doesn't mean that it wouldn't be nice to have a young, a young body in many senses, just the amount of, just the difference in the energies and stuff. But anyways,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And yes, I have, it's all these parts come back to us in our elder years, the inner child, the teenager, the just all
Oh,
these
yeah.
different different people, these different lives. Each one of those is like a different life. I feel like I live, and they all come into the embracing arms of me as grandmother of myself, and I
Yes.
embrace all those little parts of me. And there's the little girl Elisa, and then there's the crazy teenager that made a lot of bad choices. Love her anyways, and we embrace us first in the fullness of who we are. And then, it's like I can embrace everybody else in the world in a non-judgmental and a loving way. My embracing grandma arms have just grown even bigger. I can hold space even bigger and more powerfully because of this, this work here.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I tell you what, there's this a spiritual teacher that's a young man that I absolutely adore, and he always says "me set," which means um, for wholeness and balance, and to all that I for all that I love, me
Mm.
set. And I can't remember if that's Greek or where that comes from, but um, that's what reminded me of what you just said.
I love it. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it. So beautiful. Well, let's go ahead. Let's wrap this up. But will you promise me that you'll come back on? I already have a little list of topics because you touched on so many really potent points that are whole discussions in and of themselves that I'd like to really dive into. I'd also like to do some roundtables with some other crones. So this isn't the last we're going to hear of Linda Sue, our garden goddess. I'm hoping you're going to be a pivotal part of this process of helping other women to really, come into this beautiful place of wisdom, embrace their cronehood, have this transition. We can make it easier by just speaking our piece and our truth with it. So thank you, sister, for sharing your wisdom.
Oh, you're welcome. And um, I just want to show you something. I'm going to grab it off one of my shelves. Can you read that?
Okay, let's see what something by lifting others. Go a little bit more to the side.
Okay.
Okay, read it to me.
We rise, we rise by lifting others.
Amen. Or
Mm.
Mayset, I should say Mayset.
Me set.
Mayset.
And everyone
Yes.
taught me that, and I just absolutely adore this young man. I think he's only like 39 years old too, and he's a great spiritual teacher. Is Chief Ironbush. Have you heard of him?
Yes, I have definitely. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, we've
I have
got we were
I have
privy
to
to
give him a
one.
little plug.
Yes, yes. So Corey, he has a lot of a very, very interesting perspective. And I love all my men out there doing these
Yeah.
things, all our brothers, speaking their wisdom and all that. And it's time for us to do it as well, ladies. It's just
Yeah.
our time to speak up. We do it in a different way than the men do it. And it's time to have that be honored. And I feel honored to have you on here and sharing that. So thank you so much for just letting your light shine. And
Oh,
you're very inspiring and you're a powerful, beautiful woman. And thank you so
I
much.
feel the same with you too, sister. Thank you for honoring and allowing me to speak too. And you're a very wise woman too. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come on this program.
I gotta think, but you took a leap of faith because we really haven't had time to talk. This is our getting to know each other too. So
Yes.
I appreciate your leap of faith to go ahead and do this. These are all pre-recorded, so I always let women know if you don't like it and you didn't jive, whatever happened, I won't post it. I will only post when the other party says yeah, and but I know I just knew we would have a thanks to Maurice, made the connection for us. And the people that
Oh
watch
yeah.
the Rebel Crone channel will know Maurice. He's my Thursday incredible buddy, sharing wisdom together. And I had got a list from him. Who are the crones, Maurice, that you think that I should interview? And because I'm launching this new series. And there you were right on that, Linda Sue. There you are. So
Oh,
I connected and you said yes. And I'm like, yay. So all right. All right. I'm going to sign off now and I'm going to stop the record. I'm going to sign off. So thank you, everybody. And may set and peace from within because that's where it always starts.
beautiful.